Okay, so I decided to do this video for fun. But before we begin, I think some housekeeping is in order to kind of understand where I'm coming from as to why this wouldn't happen, but also some housekeeping so in that way we kind of know what I'm doing for this for my equivalent of a modern ABC Kids. So sadly, I just don't think an ABC Kids in the modern day era would really honestly happen. The only way we would get that is simply if the CW, CBS, and NBC, either one of them or all three, just collectively decide to make blocks. And I might actually talk about that in the future. But really, I think it just all depends on those three networks to move the needle, so in that way ABC decides to push the needle. But for the most part, I just don't see it happening. You got the FCC not caring about children, like straight up. If PBS Kids 24/7 didn't exist for non-cable users, the FCC wouldn't care. And also PBS wouldn't care, but luckily PBS Kids cares for their children audience who don't have cable. So we're lucky for them. Plus, at the same time, ABC just kind of accepted what they have now, airing the local news at a certain time, following that up with Good Morning America, then Lipton's Family Adventure or paid programming, and then after that, play sports. They got into that pattern routine, so I just don't see them doing that. Now, in defense to the zombie era of ABC Kids, which lasted from 2006 to its closing in 2011, in their defense, the FCC against Saturday morning cartoons kind of lasted a lot longer. And by time 2006 happened, they were already prepared to add Hannah Montana to the lineup and whatever current shows that were airing during 2006 on Disney Channel. And that's kind of one of the biggest problems that ABC Kids faced was it was matching the network that was what the network was airing during that time, but at the same time, the theme of ABC Kids during this era was the concert era, only so in that way Hannah Montana looked pretty much like on point with the branding, and they based the theme around one singular show. At the same time, this pretty much became dated after a few years. Not even after 2006, but a few years as it went on. Sure, Hannah Montana was still on the network, but the replacements and even Emperor's New Groove got canceled. So the only shows that were pretty okay and decent and was okay to be on the block was That's So Raven and The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. Everything else made the block feel incredibly dated. But not only that, but these graphics and everything were dated. They were using Hannah Montana IDs and bumpers from the first season. Now, the only ones I could, and also That's So Raven, everything else felt dated. They were using things from Emperor's New Groove and also the replacements. The only one that didn't actually receive a bumper or anything using the cast was The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. That was the only one that didn't really feel that dated, which is kind of funny. So, really, what I would do is honestly make things very simplistic. I know, it sounds odd, but it makes sense. If they keep things simplistic with bumpers and promos, it allows if there's any change in the schedule, shows get removed from the schedule as well. It's not that much of a big deal, and it doesn't allow the block to feel very dated or just really awkward as time goes on. So, simplicity for bumpers and promos will honestly go a long way. Now, in terms of commercials, once we got into the 2010s era of ABC Kids, there weren't a lot of kids advertisements. They would have every now and then promos for, or not promos, but commercials for a few toys, but everything else was like laundry detergent ads. advertisements for the ABC block later in the day for the adults. So really, they didn't do too much. And I gotta be honest, in this day and age, I don't expect an ABC Kids block to really feel super for kids for the block. So what would I do? And that's simple. Just copy Disney Channel. They have public service advertisements, just utilize those from the network. They also have literal promos for toys and other things that you just wouldn't see on the main network, and they literally go at the end of the advertisement, they go, this thing is proud sponsor of Disney Channel. Copy and paste those. Instead of Disney Channel, just put ABC Kids. Boom. Disney Channel public service advertisements and sponsored by blank in support of Disney Channel, or not Disney Channel, but ABC Kids. You pretty much solve two problems without really having to do too much advertising to other companies. And I feel like doing that alone would honestly save the block a lot. So, this is what the block looked like from 2006 to 2011. I would say at least for about 3 years, this would not inherently be a bad schedule. But I would say from 2008 and onward, yeah, this started to get old pretty quickly. Not to mention, one of the biggest problems ABC Kids had was they didn't buy full season orders. They essentially just bought whatever episodes that they could purchase from Disney Channel and kind of accepted that fate. At least for most shows, I would say at least for That's So Raven, it at least had most of its season 1 and 2 episodes, but for the most part, they were re-airing the same episodes over and over again constantly. And I feel like nowadays this problem could easily be solved by simply buying full season orders, and that's essentially what my lineup pretty much looks like. So I'm gonna keep the schedule kind of similar, but of course differences with the shows. And from 8 to 8:30, I think two cartoons are pretty good for that time slot. And I would put Big City Greens at 8 and Phineas and Ferb at 8:30. Big City Greens is gonna be the only modern show you're gonna be seeing on the lineup. But I think Big City Greens is actually a good show to put on the lineup for 8. Not only that, but there's a lot of episodes, and it's the most recent show, and I think only limiting the lineup for right now to only one modern show that at least has enough seasons under its belt to rerun is pretty good. And Phineas and Ferb is the original run of Phineas and Ferb is done. So, and considering how many seasons Phineas and Ferb has and segments, that's enough for a lineup. Now to 9:30, I thought it'd be cool to do a throwback. And I would actually keep That So Raven, but I would put it at 9. And at 9:30, I would put Lizzie McGuire. I feel like this area of the block could be a throwback to any show that they feel like rerunning again, whether it was from the ABC Kids block from yesteryear, or if it's an old show that they could easily rerun feasibly. But in terms of like the first couple of years, I don't think that these two shows would inherently be a bad idea to put at that time slot. So now for 10 o'clock, what would I put there? And since I'm removing Hannah Montana from the list, I thought I would add another music show, but at least a music show that doesn't feel dated. If I put Jonas and Jonas LA on this block, it would feel just as dated as putting Hannah Montana on the block. So really, I feel like these two shows that I just technically three shows, but Jonas is just one show. Honestly, it's not a bad throwback if you're watching it on, say, Disney Plus, but for a TV block, I do feel like it just feel a little awkward just having these shows on here when it just doesn't look like what the current actors are doing right now. And considering like Jonas and Miley Cyrus, they're not doing the stuff that they were doing for Disney Channel. So yeah, I don't think that these would be inherently good shows to put. But I don't think Austin and Ally would inherently be a bad replacement and a show to put on the lineup. Austin and Ally don't use the actual names of the actors and actresses on the show. It's just a fictional character. Ross Lynch is a himbo, sure, but he's playing a different himbo as Austin Moon. So like I honestly don't think that this would inherently be a bad replacement for Hannah Montana, but also it kind of feels like a good kind of replacement, but not super replacement of the 2006 to 2011 era. And heck, I'll go as far as saying it. While it did get annoying after a good couple of years, because the 2006 era lasted a very long time, I am pretty nostalgic for it. So I don't think Austin and Ally would inherently be a bad replacement. Just like putting That So Raven at its original time slot, I don't think that The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody would inherently be a bad idea to end off the block, but if you're watching the video, you can see I put Sweet Life on Deck also on there. And I will say this, both seasons have three seasons. Combine both, that's 6 seasons altogether. And I feel like in terms of episode rotation, you can do all the seasons of Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. Then once that's done, you do Sweet Life on Deck, and then once that's done, you go right back to season 1 of Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. I don't think that this is inherently a bad idea, especially if this is going to go on for a few years. And you get every episode of both shows. Now, if you have noticed on this list, you have noticed that there are no duplicates of 2 shows airing back to back. And there's a specific reason why I did not do this. Whether it's for regular TV that isn't a block, having back-to-back episodes aren't inherently a bad idea, but sometimes that can cause you will be able to see the same episodes repeated a lot. And I think for this, you're essentially watching one episode each week, minus the shows that have 2 segments. But for the more so the sitcoms, you're just watching a show casually as it goes. I will say this, that in terms of Austin and Ally, because I just now realized it, I would remove the Austin and Ally and Jesse crossover just because Jesse isn't on the lineup and I didn't put Jesse here. So I'd remove that episode. But other than that, not a bad block. And also, the cool part is, if there's a 2-part episode, you gotta wait till the next week to watch what happens. That's not inherently bad. If you're watching a 2-part episode and it's in the same block, it's like, oh, I can't wait. Oh, it's the next episode. Okay, that's cool. I'm totally fine with that. Not complaining, but leaving you at the edge of your seat's not inherently a bad idea, and you gotta wait. And especially if you're watching these shows for the first time, that could also be pretty cool too. Not only that, but if that shows up and you want to watch what happens next, you can just go to Disney Plus if you have it. So it's also not a bad incentive if Disney wants to use this block as advertising Disney Plus either. I mean, they've been doing that for the past couple of months with the Wonderful World of Disney just reappearing, but it really only appeared because of the writer strike, sadly. So I don't think the Wonderful World of Disney would have gone on as long as it did, currently speaking in the recording of this video. But yeah, I don't think this lineup is inherently bad. Now, you may have noticed there's an hour missing. And I did this deliberately. So right after that last Sweet Life of Zack and Cody episode ended, you would pretty much have ABC just doing either paid programming. This day and age, they'd probably do Lipton's Family Adventure or sports. So I don't think ending the block where I did with Sweet Life of Zack and Cody was inherently a bad idea. I mean, they literally did that for years on end. For me growing up, like the block ended with Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, and after that, ABC Kids was done. And I don't think that's inherently bad. Plus, at the same time, uh, there was literally a sign off for the block to end, and it ends showing all of the shows that appeared on that very lineup. However, there was a period where they would air Power Rangers right after that, and I don't think Saban would literally hand over old Power Ranger seasons to them. And considering how widespread Power Rangers is right now in terms of the older seasons, Pluto TV, the actual Power Rangers YouTube channel itself having all the episodes on the channel, except for a few seasons, I honestly, if you were to put an extra block on there, I would just throw the old Marvel shows, Ultimate Spider-Man or Avengers, either one of those shows, perfectly fine. But other than that, after Sweet Life of Zack and Cody or Sweet Life on Deck, that's pretty much where I would end the block. So, what did you think about my ABC Kids lineup? What would you do differently? Let me know in the comments section down below.